Hello friends, welcome back to 3 Barrow Farm and to my autumn garden here. For those who are new here, my name is Amy and I live on a 42-acre homestead here in central Victoria, Australia with my family of 5. And we try to grow as much food as we can while living lightly on this earth. A common question or query that I get from a lot of you is what zone you're in. Often you'll say that you don't know what zone you're in, you don't know how to find out what zone you're in. And I also get a little bit of criticism to mention my zoning as well, because there is a bit of an assumption that it is a Northern Hemisphere thing, that it is something in the US and the UK, but not here in Australia. And that is just incorrect. The zones are a global thing. So I think where some people fall short in thinking about this is because YouTube tends to show a lot of the US and UK content before they show any Australian channels. So I just wanted to make a video to show you the research that I've done into zoning. There are a couple of ways that we tell what climate we're in Australia. And I think perhaps this is where the confusion is too. So I'll get to that in a moment. But zones are mainly based on the coldest temperature that you get in a year. So it's based on more the cold, because the hot isn't when we're doing our most sowing and planting. And one part that matters a lot in gardening is your first and your last frost. Zones can also change as well. I know that Melbourne used to be considered a cool zone, but now it is more a temperate zone because of all the thermal mass that is in Melbourne now. So it has really changed a lot over decades. So one way in Australia that we describe zones are the climates that we have. So Australia is a massive country and there are so many different climates within our one country. So these climates are cool, temperate, subtropical, tropical, and arid, and even in some places we have alpine climates as well. Now this is a more generalized zoning. It doesn't sort of go into depth within those areas. However, temperatures and weather patterns can change so much in the one zone. Our farm here can experience different weather to 15 minutes down the road. And this is mainly because of the altitude that we're at compared to other areas around us. So I found a map online, which I will put a link for in the description below. The map shows us the plant hardiness zones based on the coldest temperatures. So mine is 9B, where the temperatures get as low as minus 3.9 degrees to minus 1.1 degrees. A zone 10B, which is places like Albury, Wodonga, or the coastline of Melbourne, would have a low of 1.7 degrees to 4.4 degrees. Canberra is a 9A zone with temperatures as low as minus 6.7 degrees to minus 3.9 degrees. Darwin is a 12B zone with temperatures 12.8 degrees to 15.6 degrees. Now, as I mentioned before, Melbourne's climate changed over time, and within your land or your property, your courtyard, your suburban backyard in country Victoria or New South Wales or anywhere within Australia, you might have your own microclimates within your area and your zoning. And those microclimates might even be a different zone to the rest of your garden. If your property is big enough, you may also have neighbours that experience things differently to you, like I do here. We're on a gradual incline hill here and everything is open. And from past experience, I know that when the weather app says it's going to be a low of 3 degrees overnight, I'm expecting it to be closer to 1 degree, and I'm also possibly expecting it to be a light frost that night. There are a lot of variations that can change things for you, but just knowing what zone you are in can help as a starter. You will learn over time what works for you. You might be in the same zone as I am, but you might be able to plant your tomatoes out much earlier than I can. The zoning doesn't particularly tell us when our last and our first frost dates are. That's sort of something that I guess changes year by year as well. But it's something that, even though we're in the same zone, might be completely different for a whole heap of people in that same zoning. You might have an enclosed area, or you might have a fence or a brick wall that you can grow your vegetables near, and that's going to give you thermal mass there. And so then you'll plant your tomatoes out much earlier than I will. I'm always having to put frost cloth over mine when I plant it out first, because I just never know when there might be a frost. And from my past experience, as you will get as you live longer on your property, this garden is so different from when I grew in Melbourne. And that's because we experience heavier frosts, and I've had to adapt with that over time. The weather can also shock you from one year to the next. It can be completely different. And we've seen this from this last spring that we've had, where most of my friends and most of you, I'm hearing, who are in central Victoria have had a really late tomato season and not as many tomatoes as you have had in previous years. And this was because of the prolonged winter that we had and it being so late to warm up. Watching the weather is so important. I got caught out with a late frost 2 years back and lost all my tomato plants. So I highly recommend you keep an eye on the weather and you document what happens in your garden at different overnight temperatures. What I mentioned before is an example. I know that 3 degrees means a much colder night than 3 degrees for me here. So when the apps are saying 3 degrees, I'm thinking 1, 0. I'm thinking a couple of degrees colder than they're saying. We had a 5-degree night last night. It actually said that it felt like 1 degree, but obviously we haven't had a frost. And we've got a few more nights coming up of 5 degrees. So I know that we're slowly heading that way. I mean, it is inevitable. We are heading towards winter, so a frost is eventually going to come. You would have noticed at the beginning of my video that I also have a heat zone. Now, I originally found this out via Diggers. So I have a Diggers membership, and on the back of my magazines that I receive, it has my cool zone and my heat zone. So I already knew before I found this website to show the hardiness, the plant hardiness zones. I already knew I was in 9B from what Diggers told me, and the website just confirmed this. I've put another link down below for you to find your heat zone. They also have a cold zone map, but it's a little bit more generic than the other site that I've linked. The heat zone shows you the average number of days above 30 degrees. So mine is zone 4, which has an average of 30 days over 30 degrees per year. This can help you depending on your zoning and your climate. That will help you decide what plants are best for you to plant. I don't really see an issue for this for us here in the cold and temperate zones. But if you are in a subtropical zone, this will help you pick which plants are best for you to sow. So there might be some varieties, like there are some varieties of garlic that are best suited for the tropical climates. It's mostly a cold climate plant, but there are some varieties that you can plant up there. Whereas down here, we can plant any of the garlic varieties. So if you are in the tropics or subtropics, the heat zone might help you a lot more than us here. So some vegetables won't like a certain amount of days over 30 degrees in a summer or a year, and they just won't flower, they won't fruit. So it is really important for the subtropics and the tropics to have a look at those heat zones. And this is why I focus more on the cold zone. This is more important to me. It is much more important for me to know when my first frost and last frost date is and how cold my garden gets. I hope that this little video has helped you in some way and that you find the Australian Plant Hardiness Zone map a good guide for you in planting. Make sure to comment down below with your cold zone and your heat zone if you like, and your findings from the links that I have provided. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments below, or I have my email as well in the description of this video. All the best with your gardens, my friends. I hope you have fruitful harvests ahead. I will see you again very soon.